Uasin Gishu Education Trust Fund. This fund was intended for overseas university fees for scholarship students.
You should be let go. Because on what basis are we taking a bond, Your Honor, or bail? You know, we are in court today for purpose of taking plea, but because they are unable to take plea today, we can essentially say by implication that there is no charge that has been leveled against them. They have been just arraigned in court today. You know, for purposes of them being detained, you know, what the prosecution is asking you is to give orders for pre-trial detention without an application, Your Honor. You know, there is no basis for which the accused persons should continue serving in custody.
Now, United States Ambassador to Kenya, Meg Whitman, has praised Kenya as the best investment hub in Africa. This is as the United States government outlined some of the issues that the government needs to implement to attract more investments and strengthen the devolved system of governance. Among the raft measures include a review of its tax policy, an intensive fight against corruption, and attractive trade policies. The envoy said that although there are some improvements in the fight against corruption, the government needs to put in more effort in containing the vice, noting that it undermines equal participation and erodes public investment trust.
What many analysts and commentators say was the freest, fairest, and most credible election in Kenyan history. The elections were observed by international and local election organizations, and the results were upheld by the Kenyan Supreme Court, and power was transferred orderly and peacefully at the time. Kenya is the gateway to the East African market of almost 500 million consumers. Kenya is the regional logistics hub. Kenya is the leading regional financial hub. And Kenya, with its Silicon Savannah and super smart engineers, is the region's ICT hub.
Technological development, more so on financial sector, is something the country can boast of.
The nexus of finance and technology sits one of the most impressive companies I have ever seen, M-Pesa. 60% of Kenya's GDP flows through M-Pesa.
We empower individuals, micro, small, and medium, and large businesses, as well as the government, both on the national and also county level.
And I also witnessed during the drought due to the climate change the last couple of years, the way that a lot of the county governments really engaged in climate change, for me, is a clear signal that the notion that climate mitigation, you need to deal with that at a global level, but climate adaptation, you need to deal with that at a local level. Was to name a country of champions in terms of devolution, that would be Kenya. You have in 10 years built up a huge devolved administration from scratch, which is for me really a remarkable achievement.
Take this presentation and tell the story of why Africa, why Kenya, and why your county.
Right, and now members of parliament allied to President William Ruto and opposition leader Raila Odinga last evening in a rare display of solidarity joined forces to provide legal backing to the National Dialogue Committee. The lawmakers agreed to pass a motion formally establishing the 10-member bipartisan team responsible for negotiating resolutions following the 2022 post-election crisis. Both the majority and minority sides in the National Assembly agreed that the talks should provide electoral reforms to prevent another cycle of a political standoff over disputed election outcomes. Additionally, they ruled out possible power sharing between ruling Kenya Kwanza and Azimio coalition. This now means the public and other stakeholders will be engaged during the bipartisan dialogue that will undertake its mandate within 60 days, after which a report will be tabled on the floor of the House.
All items, and we have said this in the dialogue committee, and my brother Honorable Pio will bear me witness. We shall agree. We are also bound to disagree on a few issues. The issues that are being canvassed, or the issues that will be canvassed at the National Dialogue Committee,
are issues of concern to the people, who we represent under Article 95, Sub-Article 1. Speak in good faith, do not engage in blackmail, threats, and coercion, because this is exactly what possibly brought the other talks to a close.
Where you disagree, get out, pack it. Don't bring it to Kenyans. Until you agree, bring it to Kenyans.
I commend Right Honorable Raila Odinga for thinking there's another better route to really have a conversation. And this is about the dialogue.
We will rebuild our nation, we will work together, and we will reason together. And I'm sure Kenyans will say, never again.
Hakikisheni mambo ya kina mama, pesa za kina mama za ngafu mweke pale.
Why did we not create 60 counties? Why did we not create the county of East Pokot, yet we created, Mr. Speaker, the county of West Pokot? And we know logically, Mr. Speaker, sir, that wherever there is east, wherever there is west, there must be east.
And if that's the route which is going to take in the process of these talks, Mr. Speaker, we might also see myself saying that I need a county called Bere County. So that also we have very inclusive country.
We don't need 47 counties in this country. We need a maximum of 12 or 13 or 14. Mr. Speaker, these ones are not viable. We need to bring the resources together for them to be able to make a meaningful change in the lives.
Now, Azimio Coalition claims that the government is sponsoring sabotage against the economies within their strongholds following Agriculture and Food Authority's directive for milling companies to halt sugarcane production on grounds of insufficient canes. According to Minority Leader Opiyo Wandayi, the authority is being used by the government to settle political scores against the region that has consistently backed Odinga's bid. While Azimio demands that AFA withdraws the directive, they are alleging that part of the sabotage includes farmers being denied subsidized fertilizers.
Issued by the Sugar Directorate of AFA on 17th July this year was a total mischief, making the AFA a willing participant in the evil schemes by the state to sabotage and kill the economies of the Luo and Luhya nations for their political beliefs and positions. Luo and Luhya economies are being sacrificed to benefit Kenya Kwanza sugar dealers. We will obviously not accept this.
We will support the farmers to ensure that if the factories were to be closed and any sugar importation is allowed, then it is the established millers, the main factories, which should be allowed to import to sustain the workforce.
The best option to help our workers is to allow the licensing of sugar importation to be given to the factories, the millers, so that they can import, make profit, and pay the workers using those profits.
And farmers and workers have nothing to eat. Surely, the government, we are asking you, we are pleading that you reopen the factories, mainly Chemelil and Muru.
None of the public millers has been allowed to continue milling. The few factories which have been allowed to continue milling on account of having sufficient cane are private mills. One or two private mills which have been stopped from milling are actually owned by people who are at the center of these sugar imports. So you can see the game being played here.
At a time like now when life is very difficult for the families. We have farmers with sugar cane in the farms. Yes. That are going to rot because the government has closed the factories. This is not acceptable.
I think it's in good faith because it is a big lesson to the millers now to focus on cane development. Sasa kwa hivyo any leader ambaye atasema ya kwamba that the government is trying and in fact they should know This issue was raised by the millers themselves, and they voted by.
Now, statements that all the elected leaders of Ukambani should be included in the progressive union of the 3 counties of Ukambani, known as SEKEB, continues to evoke mixed feelings among some of the leaders in the region. The most recent are senior officials in the Machakos County government who have rejected the call because they are friends.
Walianzisha jambo mzuri. The Southeastern Economic Bloc, SEKEB, wakubali waifungue, watufungulie mlango.
We have realized that we must have a difference of a direction. It's a block of the entire Ukambani. That is Kitui, Masako, na Makueni. The Southern Eastern Bloc must be expanded to include members of parliament and members of county assembly, plus the governors and the senators and the women rep.
What is wrong is the forum they're asking to be included in these forums, because of course we have a secretariat where they ought to have written to, and then they'll be welcome in the right procedure. You don't ask to be welcome in a forum, then you go and ask in churches, or you go into the public and then to tell them that you've not been invited.
We already have a law that governs the operations of SEKEB. So I would refer them to the act, and they would find their place how to engage with SEKEB as an institution formally, without having to use political platforms and talking at each other rather than talking with.
Now, the proposed Anti-Money Laundering and Combating of Terrorism Financing Laws Bill 2023 is in line with global standards. Speaking before the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning, Central Bank of Kenya Governor Dr. Kamau Thuge said the bill highlights legal and policy reforms which will address compliance deficiencies identified in a recent report released by the Eastern and Southern Africa Anti-Money Laundering Group.
I want to ask if there is a law that allows the neighboring countries or a state to work together on the money laundering.
So that group, they always now go and evaluate other countries' anti-money laundering and financing of terrorism and also proliferation financing. And indeed, that mutual evaluation report is actually the basis for why we are amending our anti-money laundering regime. So it's kind of neighbors taking care of one another and judging whether their anti-money laundering regime is in line with the international standards.
Now, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has announced that the Kenya Kwanza government is now set to revive stalled government projects in a bid to avoid wastage of public funds. Speaking in Eldoret, the Deputy President noted that the Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure, led by Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen, has been tasked to ensure all unfinished roads are completed within a stipulated time frame.
Kwa hivyo huyu minister wetu Kipchumba tumemwambia ahakikishe hii Eldoret imekaa kama city, na kwa hivyo hii ni moja na iko zingine ataeleza. Tunataka hii town ikae sawa sawa, mukae ki Eldoret, mukae ki city, ndio mkija Nairobi tunafanana na nyinyi. Si itakuwa sawa sawa? Mnajua tulipopata uongozi tulikuta bolea ikiwa shilingi 7,000. Ilikuwa imepandishwa na wale jamaa. Ndio hapo rais akaagiza na akatoa amri ikapunguzwa mpaka 3,500, naye Mwenyezi Mungu akatubariki akatupatia mvua, tumepata mazao ya sawasawa. Na juu ya hayo rais tena amepunguza kutoka 3,500 mpaka 2,500, na hivi karibuni tunataka kufungua National Cereals and Produce Board ya kuchukua mahindi, na hivi karibuni tutatangaza bei. Na tunataka hiyo pesa ikipatikana, hatutaki mambo ya mabroka, italipwa ukilete within 48 hours unachukua pesa yako unaenda.
Right, and now let's head over to Garissa, where police in the county have arrested one person in connection with an incident where 6 people were shot dead on Wednesday morning. Speaking to the press, Northeastern Regional Commissioner John Otieno disclosed that an operation to flush out illegal firearms will soon be called on those in possession to surrender them to the police. The RC was also quick to warn of retaliatory attacks, saying that the government will act tough on any individual out to cause insecurity.
Tumekaa kama security committee, tumeweza kutambua hotspots, na hizo hotspots zote tumedeploy maafisa wa usalama wa kutosha kuhakikisha ya kwamba kila mtu ataweza kulala, ataweza kuendeleza biashara yake bila hofu. Wahusika ya kwamba tutawashaka, tutawatafuta pali popote ule, hata ikiwa wameingia ndani ya maji, ikiwa wamejificha wapi, juu chini, tutahakikisha ya kwamba sheria imewashughulikia.
Now, the United Nations Trade and Development Body, UNCTAD, on Wednesday stated that African economies should seize the opportunity to better integrate into technology-intensive global supply chains and boost prosperity. But this depends on the ability to harness key market and investment trends. In a new report, UNCTAD shows that Africa can become a major exporter of higher value-added goods, creating growth and jobs and fueling a rise in productivity and wages. Launching the report in Nairobi, UNCTAD Secretary General Rebecca Greenspan insisted it would offer a better future for the continent's economies. Furthermore, Ms. Greenspan stressed that in order for Africa to be able to seize its competitive advantage, the continent's economies need debt relief to create fiscal space so that countries can invest in strengthening supply chains and in education for their workforce. She recalled that African countries pay 4 times more for borrowing than the United States and 8 times more than European nations, as shown in UNCTAD's recent World of Debt report.
Said, it doesn't make any sense that the developing countries, Africa in this case, is paying 8 times the rates that the European countries are paying for the same debt. So, in a way, you ask yourself, can I really do what I have to do, paying 8 times more for the resources and the financial resources that we need? The perception of risk of the international investors with respect to our countries is distorted by perception, not necessarily by the basics of economics. And let me be sincere saying that the rating agencies don't help.
Now, Kenyan pharmacies and healthcare facilities will be connected with Sasa Pay's digital payment platforms following a deal that was signed on Wednesday with MedSource, a medical group purchasing organization. A total of 770 community pharmacies and private healthcare enterprises that serve up to 7 million patients annually will access the services. Starting this month, the 2 organizations have already begun a first rollout with SasaPay enlisting MedSource as a healthcare provider on its app. MedSource aggregates healthcare business demands downstream and matches them with those of upstream pharmaceutical manufacturers and distributors. The SasaPay partnership will enable MedSource to unlock business opportunities through multiple seamless financial solutions in a democratized digital marketplace.
MedSource has done a fantastic job in aggregating many businesses, many people who are in the medical space. SasaPay now comes in to ensure the payments are happening seamlessly in that ecosystem. And this partnership could not have been, it came at the very right time.
This is how we are trying to create an ecosystem where there is ease of payment access, there is credit, and there's patient flow that comes in. In doing what we're doing, we have almost managed to reduce price of the product by 32% on an average in this country. So we currently are only in Kenya.
Right, and now traders across Embu County are set to benefit from the construction of 6 new modern markets aimed at stimulating commercial activities and also providing a much-needed ready market for farm produce. 2 markets are already underway, including the ultra-modern Embu Town Market at a cost of around 900 million shillings and the 20 million shillings Kithimu Market, which is almost complete, while 4 have been advertised. The 4 include Makutano in Mbere constituency, Ogweri and Karurume in Runyenje's constituency, and Buyovori in Manyata. This is in addition to a proposed industrial park aggregation center to be put up at Machanga Agricultural Mechanization Center in Mbere South constituency at a cost of 500 million shillings in a joint partnership between the county and the national government.
We are going to have quite a number of markets in Embu County. Kithimu is a market that has both the input of the county government, and we are reaching out to the national government to give us more funds to do the extensions and the improvements that we have spoken about. We want also to tie it together with the place we are headed to called Ena. Ena is also another very potential area with very many traders. If you go there during the market days, you realize there's a lot of activity, there's a lot of money in circulation. We have gotten communication from the State Department of Housing, Urban Development and Metropolitan Affairs that there will be consultations with the governors over how we manage the renovations of the ESP markets, how we collaborate with the national government, matters procurement and matters design, so that the designs that are done are tailor-made for the people of the resident counties or where the markets will be. Market development is a devolved function, and as per the Constitution of Kenya, that is a function for the county, for avoidance of doubt. And therefore it's very, very important that we actually work together with the national government and the county government to ensure we bring services closer to mwananchi. The hustler can be able to come over here and do the businesses around. We give an opportunity for the young people to come over here and utilize the ICT hubs as per the manifesto of Kenya Kwanza.